Can you even consider a life not centered around work, where maybe you get up and you travel, exploring cities and doing work that you truly, truly enjoy doing and truly feel aligned with? The Pathless Path, Paul Millard. It's had a ripple effect on a whole sub-community of people. It's almost like a new age 4-hour work week. So if you're looking for a way out, is this book the way out? The Pathless Path is a concept introduced by writer and consultant Paul Millard that emphasizes the importance of embracing ambiguity and uncertainty in one's career and life journey. Ultimately, the Pathless Path is about cultivating a sense of purpose and fulfillment through a non-linear, dynamic approach to life and work. Thank you, ChatGPT, for that summary. Why is this important? Why is this video important? Honestly, we live in a career-centric society. I don't think that that's news to anybody. And often I find myself thinking about my career even when I'm not working. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And this book asks the question, what if we live a life that isn't necessarily career-centric and is more so based on our values and creative interests? Millard kind of reframes our perspective, listing out his values in order of priority: health, relationships, fun and creativity, and lastly, career. He argues that in order to prioritize the first three over the last, you may have to underachieve at work, not set an alarm to get up for early meetings, taking naps at the office if you're in office, and so on. He states that once he began doing these things, a new creative force emerged in his life. You can't help but wonder, what would life be like if it weren't so centered around work? In the book, Millard references Joseph Piper's Leisure, the Basis of Culture, and how shocking it is that people are so willing to throw themselves into work without really pausing to reflect on what the work it is that they're doing and what work they actually want to work on. Like, how often do we really pause and think about this though? I mean, ask yourself. I actually think that people have done a much better job at doing this, especially with the onset of the pandemic. Millard argues that in Western culture, we tend to have a very narrow concept of work and career success: a 9-to-5 job, full-time salary, benefits. His experience as a freelancer challenged a lot of these beliefs as he basically traveled the world and worked from his laptop. How do you become a remote freelancer working in Bali though? Like, aren't there risks involved? When we consider these options, we often tend to not see the whole picture of people's stories. He references the story of a known author and designer who took small steps to eventually sail the world for 18 months with his family, and how it wasn't just this big decision that he made one day. It was a series of small steps, little sailing trips that eventually led to this big decision. Millard highlights that this approach focuses not necessarily on being brave, but eliminating risk and prototyping what life might look like taking an alternative path. So let's pause. I wanted to zoom back out for a second and talk about a concept that's later mentioned in the book. There's this Chinese phrase, Wu-Wei, its translation being non-doing. Millard articulates that it's not that this saying means like being lazy, but more so that true mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering. And I thought that this was really interesting because it sounds counterintuitive in a world that constantly imposes the idea that you can change your life by gaining more control. So I think that the next time you're looking to make a change, not only should you ask yourself what it is that you can do more of, but what can you do less of? What can you let go of? Okay, let's jump back in. There's this really interesting part of the book where Millard argues that the number of career paths we take are essentially infinite, and by taking many different career paths, we become more well-rounded. The comfort we feel when we do what is expected keeps us from developing the skills we need to face uncertainty, and that's why it's so important to do a bunch of things. Experiment. By doing so, not only do we expand our traditional career skills, but also our intangible life skills. Following the pathless path arguably makes us more well-rounded people. Millard later references David Whyte's conversational nature of reality. You can drive this really essential conversation with yourself by asking yourself the following questions. What matters? Why do we work? What is the good life? What holds people back from change? And how do we find work that brings us alive? I think that this is a really important concept because it teaches us to kind of like follow our almost childlike curiosity that we tend to tuck away as we get older. After reading that, I felt more aligned. I felt more clarity, and I began to ask myself those questions. And I think that this is a healthy exercise that everybody should be doing. Now it's time for my absolute favorite part of this book, designing for liking work. He talks about John O'Nolan, the founder of Ghost, the blogging platform, and how O'Nolan basically set a goal for himself to build a $1 million company by the time he turned 30. And he realized that after various failed attempts, this model, this goal wasn't really working for him. He shifted his approach to wanting to be stuck with a business. O'Nolan made a series of decisions that would ensure that he'd be stuck with this business for the long run. So he wouldn't control the shares. It's a non-profit. He started to turn down high maintenance customers that wanted crazy customizations of his platform. And he notes that instead of optimizing for a future sale or exit of his company, he just focused on building a company that he wanted to work at. O'Nolan says that once he let go of this huge notion of success that he had, success started to finally come to him. Millard kind of brings it all together by saying that the goal of the Pathless Path is not to find a job that makes you a ton of money, that's going to bring you a ton of prestige and financial stability. It's to actively and consciously search for work that you want to keep doing. And I think about how I could apply that to my own projects and my own work. So let's take this YouTube channel, for instance. I would rather serve an audience of 50 subscribers who are true subscribers that are super aligned with my content than have 500 lukewarm subscribers. The last point that I wanted to make about this book is this idea of coming alive over getting ahead. Millard talks about whenever you stumble upon an opportunity to make more money or expand your skill set, ask yourself, like, is this going to make me come alive? Or am I just reflexively saying yes because it's going to give me more money and that's what other people maybe want from me? And the idea is that if it is, maybe you're ignoring what it is that you're actually interested in. So I think next time you have an opportunity that comes your way, ask yourself, is this something that is going to get me ahead? Or is this something that is going to bring forth what's inside of me, like my creative passions and what I'm actually interested in? So is this book the way out? Perhaps through this approach, we can find the work that is worth doing. Millard argues that the actual work of your life is figuring out what the actual work of your life is. And I think that that's really interesting because it's an experimental approach. So I think that we can at least start with that and see where it takes us. So if you've been here through this video to the end, I appreciate you watching. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up so we can push it out to more people, give more people a different perspective on how to live. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you like the content. I make a lot of videos like this. Thanks again for stopping by. Peace.